All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our information technology panel. We are so lucky to have two professionals here with us today to share their expertise. And this event is hosted by Career Education Department. We are the department here that helps you connect your programs that are more related to the career and help you prepare for the workforce. So if you do have any questions, you can also always visit us at www.glendale.edu/careered, and you can always email careered@glendale.edu with any questions. But without further ado, let me get started by talking about some of our panelists. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to read you a little bit about them. So our first panelist comes with 9 years in the IT field. This is Saul Garcia, who is a construction technology analyst at PCL. And their education is that they were at Cal State University San Bernardino as a biology major from 2008 to 2011. And then at 2020 San Bernardino Valley College, they've completed their computer science courses. And at PCL, they support job sites and district users with hardware and initial software issues, provide job site solutions with technology as required by owners, manage on-site networking equipment and servers, collaborate with other districts to test and deploy equipment as needed to scale with advancing technology and the needs of the company. And since we heard a little bit of a career or direction change from biology to computer science, we're going to get into that when we start with our panelist questions. But let me start by going over to our other panelist who's with us today, which brings 27 years of experience in the IT field, which is Lisa Bondurant. Their title is Team Lead and System Administrator. Their education includes Waterston College. They studied computer technology, and the core studies included computer hardware and programs. And they have a CNE Novell certification. And then their responsibilities at PCL include managing the local techs for California Buildings District and Bakersfield District. That includes all software licenses, hardware purchases, implementing standards across both sites in line with PCL policies. They ensure all incidents and requests are completed in a timely manner, inventory management, project management with the site projects, including server, hardware, and software upgrades. So that's a brief introduction of who our panelists are, but we're going to get even deeper when we start asking them questions. So how this is going to work is I am going to facilitate the first part of this panel and ask the questions that we sent to our panelists in advance, but we know that you students have your own questions as well. So once we get about halfway through our time, we're going to stop the recording. We're going to let you ask your own questions and hear directly from our panelists. So let's go ahead and get started with the pre-established questions. The first one for us today is, please share your education and career journey. What made you decide to pursue the career you currently have, and what road bumps did you overcome along the way? So basically an introductory of who you are and where you come from and what you do in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and start with Lisa, if that's all right.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I started many years ago when networking was unknown, pretty much. And Novell was the top dog at that time. Microsoft hadn't even. And the way that I had started was the company that I was working with was setting up their first server. It was interesting to me. I was going to school for some of the computer classes. So my boss at the time allowed me to be able to go in and start working on that. And I set up their first network and their first server. And I had to run cable when it was horribly wrong to run cable. And I've just been working through that and working on setting up servers. And I've set up the local area network as well as the WANs, and doing some switches and routers, minor programming on that. I've tried programming. That's not my thing, definitely is not being a programmer. And I went to school while I was working full time. So that was, a lot to take on at the time. But then I also did my certification for Novell and did that, which was, I think Novell was the first ones that came out with the testing portion of it. So the road bumps have always been, it's computers. It's never the same thing, and you never know what's going to happen on a daily basis. So.
Yes, that definitely makes sense. I'm sure we'll be digging deeper into some of that as well on our question later about the future of the field. But for now, I'll pass this question on to Saul.
So I'm Saul Garcia, been in the field for about 9 years. Yeah, I started off in biology in school. I wanted to be a doctor actually at the time. Then the 2008, there was a lot of things going on and life happened and I had to drop out to take care of some, financial responsibilities that kind of landed on me. And I just kind of fell into IT. I went in for doing like electrical troubleshooting for DirecTV receivers. So I was doing a lot of hardware stuff at the time. And then that kind of led into like more software, more computer heavy stuff. And then I ended up going into like consultants work where it was just a lot of different fields. And then from there, I focused more on warehousing and made it into PCL a few years later. Road bumps, sometimes I still think about it, whether, I should have kind of stuck to biology and gone back and just try to finish that, but it was pretty hard, biology. It wasn't for me. It's, there was a lot of kind of like memory stuff that you had to remember, parts of the cell, the human body and all things like that. And I just didn't do very well on there. I was better in, computer stuff. When I was young, I did a lot of playing around with like Windows 95, which was like the big thing back then. Windows was, I think, just barely starting to really cement themselves in the business world as being the major player for enterprise, sized systems. So that's kind of where I landed after a while.
Fantastic. And I appreciate your transparency with that idea of like looking back and wondering, but it sounds like you also did such a great job of seeing what you were drawn to and what you were naturally skilled at, and how you ended up there when, economic recession and also other things, which I'm sure our students are managing right now as well. So I will go on to our next question, which is, what is your current position and how would you describe your current work? Let's go ahead and start with you, Saul.
Yeah, I am a construction technology analyst at PCL. We do a lot of system administration. We are kind of like the first called when there's any networking issues, when there's any software issues, just about any issue, whether it be hardware or software, we're usually the first ones to be called. And then from there, we'll typically troubleshoot. If we can fix it, we would, but a lot of times, particularly as they start into like the specialized software or devices that we use, we'll escalate to the different teams in our company that will then kind of help us out remotely and start looking into that.
Very nice summary. And I'll see if Lisa, if you from your position have anything to add or want to talk about your role as system administrator.
So I manage the techs that actually work at two different sites, the California site and the Bakersfield site. We actually, while we own everything that's actually physically on the site, from the servers, to the switches, to the routers, as Saul stated, we may not have the knowledge to be able to troubleshoot all of that. So we do have resources in our Canadian headquarters that can help us. But we manage all the desktops, all the servers, the switches, licensing, the projects that get, pushed down from headquarters to us, and make sure that we're providing the support on a daily basis to the job sites and ensuring that they're able to do their jobs and get what they need to be able to do their side of it. So we actually take care of them from start to finish is my feel, but
yeah,
Lisa,
very comprehensive.
Did you all already go over how many kids you have to keep safe in the pool?
No, we
They're
did not.
like the PCL Construction technology lifeguards, right? No running on the pool deck, no installing random software you find off the internet. Don't pick up gum off the street and eat it. That sort of stuff. So how many of us are there that you have to keep track of?
There's 374 approximately throughout CAP,
And so how many offices are there, main offices?
So we have 3 offices. We have one in Glendale, we have one in Orange County, and we have one in San Diego. And jobs are at each of those sites throughout. So,
Right.
and with that, they've got trailers on site that we support their networking gear as well as their users.
Yeah, so inside a construction trailer, you have additional technology, right?
Correct. Yes.
So I mean, y'all are saying like, oh, you know, there's some switches or some routers, we solve most of it. And it's like, you got more technology than it took to put a human on the moon, right? Like that's what you have to manage on a daily basis with some people who maybe aren't rocket scientists operating them. So
Yeah.
we're a
Yeah.
little rougher on it.
Yes.
It sounds like our panelists here have mastered the art of working
Modesty.
with people who maybe aren't as familiar with the technology and that tact. So you're telling it like it is. And for those of you wondering who John Touchy is, we actually had him for our VDC Virtual Design and Construction panel. He's the VDC manager at PCL. So welcome, John. Thank you for being here as well.
Thanks for letting me crash the party.
Of course. So with that being said, let's jump ahead, which the next question is very related. It's about some of your favorite things about your work and some of the challenges you face. So kind of like pros and cons, favorites and least favorites with your current work. Let's go ahead and start with Lisa this time.
I think the favorite thing is it's never the same thing every day. And I think the thing that's most exciting for me anyways is if there is a problem, right, that we get to dig into it and try to figure it out. And most of the time or some of the time, it is not the person that put the upgrade in or the patch in or the programming in that finds the issue. It's the end users, right? And we're the ones that are digging into it and trying to figure out what it is and where it breaks, and makes that consistency of, okay, we can break it consistently if we do this. So I think that's the thing that I love. I think the thing that is challenging is that you don't know. And usually when a user is coming to you, they're not happy at that point, right? IT only exists when you need them, it seems like. So at that point, it's, we're not their favorite person. So it's trying to make sure that we can give them what they need. And sometimes we don't know the answer, and it is trying to dig into it, and it gets frustrating for them if they don't have the time, as well as we're trying to recreate it ourselves. So I think it's just trying to make sure that we're giving them what they want and make sure that we're providing them the support and that we're there for them. So that can be frustrating at times because, again, we don't always know the answers.
Very well said. Saul, did you want to add anything different from your perspective?
Yeah, one of my favorite things is I actually get to go to a lot of different places, whether it be UCLA, South Shores, which is by the beach. There's a lot of places that you get to go and on company time that you get to see, and they're all set up differently. The weather's different, the switches are different as well, the sensors and all the different type of things that each site might have is can be unique to itself. So for example, crypto, we recently set up is using a lot of technology actually at the crypto arena, which used to be a Staples Center, using a lot of different technologies. One of the newest switches that we've gotten into our district is being used there, as well as a lot of sensors that are being put out on the field and such. So there's a lot of different things that we get to play around with, and it's never the same. So it doesn't get stale, in my opinion, the job. So gets pretty fun. As far as challenges, we work with a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities, so it keeps us on our toes as well, though. So it can be pretty fun.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I noticed a theme of variety, definitely. New challenges, new areas, even new setups to get used to. Very nice. And so the next question is more about people trying to get started in this field. So the question is, what qualifications, education level, training, certifications, licenses, experience, or whatever else are required for entry into this kind of work? And if you participate in hiring, what impresses you the most when you're considering hiring someone? So we'll start with Saul in this one.
Well, I started in biology, so I was very far away from falling into this field. My path, I think, was definitely a lot harder than it could be for other, professionals. I started in a minimum wage paying job, and I kind of worked my way up from there. That being said, I know that there are a lot of certifications, whether they be vendor specific, like Microsoft, MCSE, Cisco, CCNA, VMware, which is also a pretty big one. They do virtualization for servers. Then there's Red Hat Linux, which I think you might find a few opportunities out there for that. But there's a lot of ways to kind of go about it. You can go the certification way, which would kind of put you in a place where, at least personally, I think will be like very hardware specific. But there's a pretty big variety of companies that still, that use these technologies, and that would really like someone to have the certifications. It could be, very big. Then there's the very general ones like A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, for example, is also, it's one that's offered. It's also, I think it's one of the requirements, like if you want to get into the government side of things, I think Security Plus is one of the ones that they do look for. At least they did back in my day. I don't know about now. I haven't checked in a while, but they did look for Security Plus back in the day. It was, so there's a lot of certifications that I think can really help someone's career out there. And then, once you get into the school side of things, I did see at Glendale Community College, they do have a pretty good variety, whether it be something more in line for like end user tech, kind of like what we do as far as like switches and stuff like that. They have the IT Technician 3, I think, program I saw. And then there's the computer science, which is, really big on the development side of things. I don't know much at all, I would say, of like programming. I did a little Python, not too much, very, very entry level. And I know a little bit of scripting, like PowerShell, JavaScript, just a bit. So, there's a lot of things I think, depending on what someone wants to do, whether it be on the tech side of it and doing things on the back end, as far as like, configuring switches, configuring servers. There's a lot out there that I think can fill each, I guess, requirement for each one.
Perfect. No, that's very helpful. And I think that also sets a good example for our students. You did your homework ahead of the panel and looked at our programs a little bit. So thanks for doing that, Saul. I'll pass the same question on to Lisa.
I think I reiterate what Saul has said. I think it really depends on the path that someone wants to go down in IT. There are so many different areas. There's, programming and security and networking and, desktop support. There's so many things that I think taking classes that kind of give you a view or a feel of those different areas. Because just as being a doctor, and I think we're computer doctors, you may specialize in one field, or you just may be a generalist where you want to be able to have, the information and knowledge. So I think trying to figure out and trying to decipher which one of the classes maybe interested you more will then allow you, right, to then go down and look at certifications. The college courses are definitely something that they look at for the degree, but I think those certifications actually also give you a head up, because everybody is doing those and looking for those in areas. When I hire somebody, while I understand that they have been to college and have done the classes and have done the training, I will tell you that nothing is the same as class, right? When you walk out of class and you go to troubleshoot a network, it is not the same way as when you did a lab in college and everything kind of just, seemed to fall into place. It's different in the real world. So what I look for is somebody that has that drive and desire to want to learn, because you can teach anybody anything as long as they have the drive and desire to want to learn it. So it's actually looking for that and finding the person that wants to, be a part of a team and work together and work towards the same goal.
Very well said. So students, when you're getting ready for interviews and preparing your application materials, be sure that you're not just advertising your technical skills, but also those real world interpersonal skills that Lisa's talking about as well. Perfect.
Can I jump in?
Oh yes, please do.
Okay. So one thing that we didn't mention in my VDC bio is that my degree's in business administration with an emphasis on information systems. So like in high school and college, I was the IT director of like 2 car dealerships, which was a lot of fun. Mechanics are a hoot, but they go to websites they really shouldn't, especially on company computers. So that was a good time. But I think one thing that would be awesome is, does GCC have a relationship with Microsoft? Because like one tool that I was able to use was, as a student, I was able to leverage like the Microsoft licensing agreements. And I took like an old computer that I managed to find, and I set it up as a Windows server, and I created a Windows domain. Like I had a home lab. Yeah, I don't know if anyone here is on Reddit, but like there's awesome like home lab subreddits. And this was like way before Reddit, but like I had my own domain controller at my house, and like it got crazy. Like I had all my computers in my house, my parents' computers and stuff. Like I had a Windows update server, and I would like manage the updates for my family. And Lisa's laughing because none of this surprises her. But like just having a way to be set up and experiment on stuff, use evaluation licenses and things like that, because as a new college graduate, with any sort of a degree, but like more importantly, like practical real world experience, and you can be like, I have a home lab, and like I'm the domain admin, and like I've done this, I've administrated this setup. It's a big differentiator on the resume. And it's also, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like look on like Craigslist, look on OfferUp, and see what you can find for like free hardware. Because a lot of times if like someone's giving something away for nearly free, like you could probably message them and be like, hey, I'm a student, I'm going to school for this, I'm trying to set up a home lab. I bet you would be surprised by like what they'll put in your hands to help you get started. So, because I will tell you, as someone who's been in a situation where like you're disposing of old hardware, I've put posts on like Craigslist for like server racks and had somebody show up that was just going to take it and sell it for scrap metal. And it was like, I would much prefer to just give that to a student where I know it's going to go to a good cause. So just a few little things that I want to throw out there that made a really big difference for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great addition. And I also want to highlight for our students, some of you might know this, but a lot of students, when they come to me one-on-one for resume stuff, they're like, I can put something on my resume that I didn't get paid for. I can put a personal project like a home lab on my resume. And yes, you can. You can see everybody, all our panelists nodding. So you can definitely list that experience and it will be valued. And I do see a question in the chat. John, we are going to do questions as soon as we're finished with the facilitated portion. So I'll hold on to that and come back to that. But for now, we have a couple more of the preset questions, just 3 more. So this next one is there anything you wish you knew about your field or career when you were a college student? So let's go ahead and start with Saul this time.
Yeah, IT is very different from biology. I wish I knew that. No. Technology changes very fast. When I started in IT, we were still using XP, Windows 7. Then they just skipped 8.1 because it was not very good.
You're a baby. Lisa and I, Lisa's talking about Novell networks, and I remember having to set up the IPX protocol. Like,
Yes.
I was thrilled when we didn't have to use token ring, kid.
Right.
Yeah, in my professional time of, in Windows XP was the oldest I've gone. NT maybe here and there, but not very often. So things changed very quickly. So from going to 7 to Windows 10 was, it took a little bit to get used to, but just the location of start menu for a while was really throwing me off where things were instead of going through like control panel and stuff like that. You had to go through the settings, which is very more like tablet-like instead of what we were used to like Windows-like. So it just took a little bit of relearning. Most of the wording though was the same, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, just the way that technology changes, you could be using something or a software that requires only 4 gigabytes of RAM 1 year, and then 3 years later when you upgrade, oh, you need 16 now because of how it changed. So now you have to go out and change your entire systems out there because all the computers you have only have 4 gigs of RAM, but the software that the company relies on needs 16 now. So yeah, some of the stuff that we run into.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. The constant change. And I'll pass it over to Lisa if there's anything you wanted to add that you wish you knew.
So I wish I knew that IT is not an 8 to 5. IT 95% of the time is a 7 by 24. My background is in distribution, manufacturing, and those sites don't shut down. So, and if you talk to any old IT person or even, a young IT person, we're all going to have our horror stories of those nights that would never, ever, ever end, and that you have worked continuously. And so my recommendation is really find out what your SLAs are, your service level agreements, and if you're on call, how long are you on call, right? Who's your escalation path? Because I'm going to tell you I will never forget the Christmas Eve night that I couldn't have Christmas Eve. So I think that's the thing, is that you just need to understand that in certain situations it is 7 by 24, and you will, it is not, you will have that night that will never end.
That is definitely something that they don't always put on the job descriptions, that it's good for our students to have a heads up about that you might not have learned in school. So thank you for sharing that, Lisa. I'm glad you made it through that time.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And so the next question is, what future do you predict for the job market for this career? What trends do you see developing over the next few years? Let's start with you, Lisa.
I think programming is always going to be a big thing, right? There's always applications and things that are happening, and even robots and all of that all have to be programmed. So programming is always something that is going to be around, I think. Security, I know everybody is going towards security, and what happens is everybody starts to go down a path, right? And everybody kind of gets in it, and then it's, overrun. But I think programming is always going to be one of those things that is going to be around, because you need that to program the robots or anything else that is going to take effect. But I will tell you, it takes a special person to sit there and program and go after line after line after line of looking at code and trying to figure out where it's at. And I tried programming and it wasn't for me, but that's just my opinion. I think programming is always going to be around.
Yeah, thank you so much. What about you, Saul?
Same thing. Everything's going smart nowadays, right? You got TVs, smart cars, smart microwaves. You can have smart toasters. Who knows? So someone has to program those things, right? So I think there's just a lot of growth. And I think with things like even appliances, like a refrigerator and stuff going smart, then that will lead into, people being able to exploit those things. So now the security section of all this is growing. And then with more security, there's going to be new appliances and stuff like that. And then, so all this growth, I think, even though one might say, oh, it's going to be in programming, I think it'll eventually like spill over to everything else. So, the tech side, like hardware wise, networking and stuff like that, will also grow with all the other things.
That definitely makes sense. And John, did you want to add anything to this one?
Yeah, I mean, there was a PhD mathematician named James York. And he taught at the University of Maryland. But one of his quotes that commonly pops up in business books is that the most successful people in life are the people who are good at plan B. And so I think when you're thinking right now, like about what you're gonna do after you graduate, where life's gonna take you, just remember that like you're probably going to need to be more of a generalist than a specific kind of person with a specific skill set for right now. So and what I mean by that is that like you might be focused on programming, but don't discount classwork related to data management, data warehousing, linear algebra, and data manipulation, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you're going to need to be that the cliche term is full stack, right? But like a full stack programmer just means like you're a fully functional human being. I think, like, I don't know why people brag about it. It's like, I'm a full stack dresser. I know how to like put my shoes and pants on and a shirt. Thank you very much. So I think just make sure that as you're going through school, like you don't just cherry pick the classes that you think you're going to do right now, and that something isn't relevant to you, because like odds are that class that you're going to skip out on probably is going to have some stuff in it that's worth paying attention to.
Yes, perfect. That's great as for our students to keep in mind, that idea of you never know when something's going to be relevant. And with that being said, we have just one more question before we open it up to our attendees' questions. So the last question for this official recorded panel is, what advice would you give to students looking to enter this career? It's partly what you already shared, but if there's anything else, any general advice that you want to share with our students who took time out of their day to be here and listen to you, that you want to share, I'll go ahead and start with Saul.
Yeah, just to preface on kind of what John already said. You don't want to be very specific. You want to try to diversify what you bring to a company. But it's not to say that special, like having something specific on your resume isn't good, but take Novell, for example. Like they're not in the business anymore, right? Like I don't know anybody who uses Novell anymore. So, things can change. And, Lisa, she was able to adapt, but, who knows, there might be someone out there who was really banking on Novell and, they specialized too much and then everything went Windows and, they didn't really have much to offer anymore.
Yeah, that idea of pigeonholing maybe a little bit, Saul, and having that breadth rather than just the depth. Great advice. So let's move on to Lisa.
So I think what John and Saul said is very spot on, right? And again, there's so many fields in IT. When you're starting out, you may find something that you think you're really going to like, but then you try something else. But I think the other important thing is make sure you have a mentor. Make sure that you have a community or partnerships with other people that are in the IT world, because they become important when you're going through it, and you can ask advice and guidance on things of that nature. Even if there's problems or things that you're dealing with, you can always reach out to that community or the mentor to kind of, guide you and help you. I think those things are important as well, because as you're starting your career off, there's many things that you may want some advice on and you want some guidance on. And I think having that is important, because, you starting out, you never kind of really know all of the, business world and the way things revolve and happen. So I think that's really important.
Definitely. John, did you want to add any last advice for this recorded section? Looks like we lost your audio somehow.
There we go.
Got it.
That's an exhibit in troubleshooting, right? Sometimes it's the simplest problem. No, I mean, hey, I've gone on record saying I'm a full stack dresser, and that's going up on YouTube or somewhere, so that's cool. No, I don't know. I just think like when you approach whatever profession you get into, as like a willingness to help, a willingness to fix things, and you're not, kind of pigeonholing yourself and saying like, oh, that's not my job, right? Like when you are willing to steer into problems and be part of the solution, like you become incredibly valuable to an organization. So like if you approach work from that perspective and approach your academic time as an opportunity to assemble the tools that you're going to use when you are a professional, that's going to set you up for a lot of success. Get the tools, get the attitude, and rock and roll.
Perfect. Great conclusion for this recorded session. So those of you who are watching this later, thank you for watching this. And again, if you do need any support, please know the career education counselors are always here to connect with you. I'm going to go ahead and stop that recording.